Recording from our respective locations, I am Public Affairs Director Matthew Huffman, and this is Momentum, a webcast connecting advocates across our state. In this episode, we have a familiar face along with a new friend. So I am really excited today to be talking to Haley Harold and Kevin Fitzpatrick of the SafeBar Network. Haley, Kevin, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. Well, just to kind of get introductions out of the way. So Haley, you and I actually met several years ago when we were both at University of Missouri, taking some nonprofit management classes together. And then you went on to work at Moxa in Kansas City. I came to the coalition and we had the opportunity to work together for the last several years on a variety of projects. But now you have moved into a really exciting new opportunity that you get to tell us about today. So I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Matthew. Yeah, so in May of this year, we launched the SafeBar Network, which started through a partnership I formed with Kevin Fitzpatrick, who's on the webcast with us today, and his business partner, Kevin Duffy, while I was at Moxa. Kevin Fitzpatrick and Kevin Duffy, they own bars in Columbia, Missouri, Bloomington, Indiana, and Lincoln, Nebraska. And they recognized that they were having some issues with people making other people feel uncomfortable and unsafe in their bars. And they wanted to work with their staff and train their staff to find a solution. So as people do, they Google searched and they found Moxa and they found me, and we formed this partnership. So we've been working together for the last 2.5 years, and just recently formed the SafeBar Network so that we can train more bars across the country to use active bystander skills to prevent sexual harassment and sexual assault.
Well, great. Thanks, Haley. Kevin, I want to turn it over to you now, just to give us a quick introduction of yourself and how you really came up with this idea with your business partner, other Kevin.
Other Kevin, that's right. Kevin Duffy and I were fraternity brothers back in the late 70s at the University of Missouri, and found ourselves after the last Great Recession, I guess, looking for something to occupy our time. And we've been fortunate in our prior businesses. Kevin Duffy was with an insurance group called NEW. And they're the groups that when you go into Best Buy, when you used to be able to go into Best Buy, and they would say, would you like a warranty with that? And NEW did all of Best Buy's warranties as well as most other realtors in the United States and around the world. And so Duff spent most of his the second half of his adult life living overseas, working in China and Japan, Brazil, and Turkey, getting the warranty program set up for NEW. And I became a commercial real estate developer here in Kansas City, and been worked in commercial real estate for a long time. And after 2008, Kevin had retired, and I had decided that the shopping center business was no longer going to be a viable option. And we were introduced through a friend and a former partner to the opportunity that our old college bar had at MU, which is to buy Harpo's. And so we did that, and it's ended up spending quite a bit of time on it together. Liked the business, surprisingly. We never thought we'd be in the bar business, but kind of thought it was cool to own Harpo's. And here we are, I think 10 years later, where we in addition to Harpo's, we purchased 5 other bars in Nebraska and Indiana, and as well as another one at Mizzou. And it's really become a fun business for us. We enjoy being around young people and the college campuses and the college communities. And so it's been a very fun and rewarding business, but not without risk. And like most businesses that have some high rewards, they have some risks. And we were exposed to some of those risks after being in the business for a while. Mostly because as old guys, we look back to our college life in the rearview mirror, which tends to be rose-colored, and that rose-colored rearview mirror maybe blocked out some of the things that went on in college bars, maybe then, but definitely now. And that's where we met Haley and started investigating what we could do to improve the communities that we do business in, and how we could make life better for our customers, employees, and those communities. So that's kind of where we are.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that background and kind of overview of how this got started, Kevin. Um, Whenever I was getting ready for the webcast, I looked at your website, and y'all have a really great video up that is Haley introducing the conversation with some staff from some of the bars. And then you also are featuring some of the employees talking as well. And something that really stood out for me in watching that video is one of the employees at one of the bars said, you know, we are employees here, but we're also patrons here quite a bit too. So we really want to make sure that everybody who comes into the bar feels safe, because we also want to feel safe when we go out. So it's really about looking out for each other. And I really liked that video, and I thought that was such a great message to include in there, because that is really an important part of our prevention work. And I see that as such a through line with the three of us in this conversation too, is that, you know, we really are working to create safer and healthier environments, safer communities for everybody. So I'm really excited to kind of jump into this conversation with y'all. Can I ask you to just give us an overview of what the Safe Bar Network is?
Yeah, I can do that. So the Safe Bar Network is a group of bars, eventually across the country. The global pandemic has slowed our growth at this point, because a lot of our bars don't think it's safe to open right now. So it's a group of bars who are focused on creating a workplace culture where people take action to make sure that people are comfortable and safe. And the way we achieve that goal is we facilitate a conversation around noticing concerning behavior, interrupting in a way that's going to be effective, and then most importantly, providing each other support. Just as you said, people are patrons one night and they work there the next night. And when we're teaching these, especially in these college bars, when we're having these conversations that are building these skills and creating a support system around using them, that seeps into the broader community, and definitely the campus community, because these students are not just employees at these bars. They're students in the campus community. They live in the community, and so they're using their skills more broadly.
I'm also kind of curious, Kevin, you started to go into this a bit in terms of how you and your partner, Kevin Duffy, got your businesses going, how you got connected with Haley. But what was kind of the mission behind founding Safe Bar Network?
Well, we had an issue with some inappropriate behavior at a bar in Indiana, and some community bounce back on that wasn't positive. And so we were a little naive, I guess, a little optimistic about how wonderful all of the behavior was for all of our thousands of patrons. And then we reached out to Moxa and found Haley, and we brought her to Bloomington, and we have 3 bars at Indiana University. And as a result, we have a little less than 20 managers on staff. And so we brought Haley in to give a trial. She didn't know it at the time, but it was a trial run to see how she would present. And in the first 5 minutes, she laid out some inappropriate behavior that often evidences itself in bars, college bars, and other bars around the country, and went around the table to our managers and said, "Does this ever happen here?" And we were kind of confident they'd say, "No, that never happens here." And as a matter of fact, they all said it happens here, and they said it happens almost every day and every night, and our jaws dropped to the floor. And my business partner and I were shocked and dismayed, and we then launched a training program for all of our approximately 500 to 600 employees across the 3 states we do business in conjunction with Haley, to train our staff on how they can make these problems, if not go away, which would be our goal, at least be drastically reduced in their scope.
So Haley, when you asked that question to the bar managers of how often is this happening here, were you surprised by that response?
No, I was not. And the reason I wasn't is because we ask a similar version of those same questions to 5th graders, and the response is the same. So I've had a lot of experience talking with groups about sexual harassment and boundary violations and consent violations. And it doesn't matter if they're 10 years old or if they're adults. They're all seeing these kind of things happen on a daily basis. So I wasn't at all surprised. The other thing that I think is so wonderful about the Safe Bar training is that it's a facilitated conversation. So across the board, it doesn't matter if we're talking to a staff of 3 people or a staff of 150 people. They're able to recognize things that they see that make people uncomfortable and unsafe. It doesn't matter where the bar is. There's always someone on staff who already takes a lot of pride in recognizing when a customer is not having a good time and figuring out how to change that and make it better. The magic is really getting everybody to talk about it together and changing policies on the spot and thinking of new creative ways to handle a consistent problem. Thinking about like, where do these problems happen? Do we have an issue? This one always surprises me, but every bar I've ever talked to, there's an issue right outside the bathroom. Like, people will hang out outside the bathroom waiting for people, and the staff recognizes, like, go away, they'll find you if they want to talk to you, you know? So they're already recognizing these things. And sometimes we do talk through, like, okay, if the bathroom's an issue, like, do you put a security person there to make sure things are okay or keep people moving along? So we'll create policies on the spot. We will talk about problem areas or problem behaviors and figure out solutions that will work. And then we talk about the reality that, you know, there will always be obstacles, and we're not asking you to overcome obstacles. We're just asking you to figure out what will work for you. So it's really common to hear servers and female bartenders say that, you know, like, in a lot of situations, I don't feel comfortable approaching a drunk man and intervening. Like, I don't feel like that's a safe thing for me to do. And just acknowledging and validating what they're saying and saying, okay, so if that's the reality, what else can we do? And it's a really great opportunity for managers and security staff and men on staff to step in and say, like, I'm going to help you in all of those situations. Like, you give me the look, you let me know. And that's the things that are happening in every bar training, whether it's a college bar or some of our bars in Kansas City we've worked with that have, you know, 40 years of bar experience in the room at any given time. So no, to answer your question, I wasn't at all surprised. And the conversation is really similar. It flows in a really similar way no matter where you're at, although the problems that people see are a little bit different depending on the culture of their bar and the place and the staff.
Yeah, and I think that you bring up a really good point, that the culture of every bar is going to be really different. But something I heard you say that I think is a really great part of this program is how you take many pieces of different violence prevention strategies and incorporate them in. So really building on bystander intervention efforts, really building on more of the kind of environmental factors there. So going over things like where any sort of place in the bar people might feel unsafe or uncomfortable, like bathrooms that you mentioned, but also really working on doing policy changes inside of that as well, and having it be really collaborative so that everybody knows that they have a role to play in it. And I really like how you also framed it as it's a conversation, because I think sometimes with violence prevention efforts, once you really dig into the topic, it can feel so overwhelming that then you don't exactly know where to go next. But I love that you talk about it like a conversation. You're inviting conversation in and coming up with really realistic strategies to meet those challenges.
Yeah, I think the thing that sets us apart and the training that we do apart from other violence prevention curriculums I've used, and I've pretty much used all of them at some point, and some that we created at Moxa on our own too. The thing that really sets it apart is that our number one objective is to teach the staff how to have a conversation about noticing concerning behavior, interrupting in a way that works and makes sense, and then supporting each other. The goal is not that they can, name X, Y, Z, or they memorize this, or they understand all of the dynamics of interpersonal violence. It's just really that they're able to have that conversation every night of the week, because we know that that is the way we change norms. Lots of little conversations.
So I'm curious to hear from you both, as you all launched this project and have really got it going, is there anything that surprised you?
Well, I think several things, lots of things. First of all, we are blessed here in the Kansas City area with a tremendous organization called Moxa, and I've been involved in it for decades as a donor, but not as intimately as I am now. And we are just never disappointed by our interactions with Moxa. And when Haley Harold decided that she was going to leave the Kansas City area, we were happy to hire her and launch this 501c3 to further our efforts in our own bars into other organizations. And so that was surprise number one. Is I think here in Kansas City, it seems to be a world-class organization that we're blessed to have in our community. At least that's my opinion. I don't want to offend anybody that might be outside of that organization, but that was takeaway number one. Takeaway number two was, like my business partner and I, two old guys looking back on with rose-colored glasses on the college bar experience, which is a generally happy time. Whatever college bar you happen to frequent, it's usually fond memories. And I also was surprised that our young people also tend to think of that college bar environment with some type of romantic attitude and not understanding that these things actually go on. And so part of the conversation that we have with our staff and employees, and now the staff and employees of other venues, is, hey, open your eyes and be aware of what's going on out there. And then the third thing that I'm surprised at is how readily the young people that work for us are willing to have that conversation. A lot of that is a credit to Haley Harold and how she can facilitate the conversation, the open and honest exchange of ideas. But it's also the idea that once their eyes are open, just like Kevin Duffy and myself, the staff says, holy cow, this is going on and we can do something to make a difference here. And it's just had a real rapid, in my opinion, change in our organization. And I hope that's reflected into our customers. And then the fourth thing that's good about this is that it has changed our culture. I mean, one of our core values in our businesses is to treat our businesses and the people we work with as family. And I think this proves that to the folks that work with us and our customers. We care about you. We want you to feel like family when you come in here. We certainly want you to keep coming back. And if you have a bad experience with a predator that is trying to do something in the sexual area that is inappropriate, We don't want that. And it's a loss for us. It's a loss for us as a customer, as a culture, as an environment. And I think it's had a great positive effect. So we take all that, we bundle it together and say, how can we spread this around the United States? And with Haley's departure from Moxa, it just opened up too good of an opportunity for us to pass up.
Yeah, I would say my biggest surprise is similar to your last one, and that's just how rapidly we've seen change. I worked at Moxa for 8 years, and the last 5 years we were implementing violence prevention programs with middle schoolers and high schoolers, and we saw lots of anecdotal change, but not until like year 3 or 4 or 5 of implementing a program. And the you would think like, okay, well, bar staff stay, and they're older, so of course it's faster. But in the bars we work with the most, they have pretty high turnover because their students are really taking jobs on a yearly basis or by semester, kind of based on their class load. And we've just been able to see really, really positive shifts quickly within a year or two. And I think the one that's kind of illustrates that the best for me, during training, no matter where you're at, there's always a scenario that comes up where people say, there's someone, they've had too much to drink, they're kind of stumbling around. It's obvious that they need some help, that they're not safe. And we always had really good responses in the bars that we trained, but they were all over the place. So someone might say like, find their friends, or get them breadsticks, or like pour them a big glass of water, or maybe get them home. Whatever it was, they were good answers, but no sense of consistency. And this last round of training in January, across all of the bars, so you have to remember they're in Indiana, Missouri, and Lincoln in Nebraska, everybody said the same thing. It didn't matter, what training we were at, whether it's the first training or the 5th training. They said, if we see someone who looks like they've had too much to drink, we're going to get them water, we're going to get them food, we are going to find their friends, and at the end of all that, if we're not successful, we're going to make sure that they get home safely. And to me, that is an incredible shift in culture in a really short time, that everybody's on the same page. And it's not that Kevin Fitzpatrick and Kevin Duffy and their managers like posted signs everywhere or wrote it down in a handbook somewhere. That was the result of lots of conversations about noticing when things don't look right, or someone's not safe or comfortable, and figuring out what we're going to do about it.
And the problem that we've got in today, as we sit here on August 26, 2020, is that we had good momentum, and momentum, I think, is what Haley was describing. And now all of our locations have been closed since the 10th of March. And, my concern, looking forward to whenever we reopen, is now we've got to get that awareness and that momentum back. And that's going to take, unfortunately, a lot of work to get back to where we left off on March 10th. So we've got that ahead of us, as well as establishing the new tentacles of our Safe Bar network. But we look forward certainly to the day where our venues can open back up, and we can probably do the training with Haley prior to the day we open, and making sure that's done successfully. So.
Well, Kevin, I appreciate that you brought that up, because I did want to ask, we are in the middle of a pandemic, and so that has obviously affected people going out to bars and socializing in the same way that we did prior to the pandemic. So I'm kind of curious to hear from you both, with your efforts at the Safe Bar Network, how have those kind of changed because of the pandemic, and what has it maybe allowed you all to really focus on right now?
Yeah, so the pandemic has really slowed us down. We had great momentum coming out of our January trainings. But as Kevin said, the bars that we work with closed down in the middle of March. And a lot of our bars that we would be expanding to and training now are in the same boat. They're not open. And it just, it happens that a lot of the values that make Safe Bar training a really good fit for your bar are also the values that, maybe mean that you don't open yet, or if you do open, you're making sure that you're following what's safe and doing all the things that your community is asking you to do. So even for bar partners that are open, things look really different. It's not the big social atmosphere with hundreds of people there having a good time. It's a lot lower key and smaller groups. And, when I talk to bartenders and servers across the country, they're just not seeing the same kinds of things they saw when people are socializing and coming out to meet people and have a good time and are, dancing and doing all of those things that are really part of nightlife. So until things start to open back up, we won't have the same need for our training until people start to see that there's an issue. Of course, in the bars that we already work with, as soon as they open or prior to, we'll be making sure that their staff is trained. But as far as expanding the network, it'll probably take more time for bar owners to recognize, like, okay, this problem that Kevin Fitzpatrick sees in his bars, I'm seeing the same things here, and now I have a really viable solution for how I'm going to solve that.
I think in some way we're a little bit blessed when it comes to the Safe Bar Network, is that we're not doing the mistake I think a lot of people do when they get excited about something and they've had a positive experience, which is, ready, fire, aim. I mean, we're ready, aiming. We're spending the fall of 2020 making sure that our programs, our plans are ready to be launched, and then we're going to launch them. And then we're also a little fortunate, I think, and I'm really trying to, make a positive out of a huge negative of being closed for several months. But our vendor stakeholders, which are the liquor, beer, and wine and the distillers and the distributors and the brewers, are having record years. And we're going to certainly be reaching out to those folks and saying, since your sales are up 35%, we're certainly you want to join Kevin Duffy and Kevin Fitzpatrick in contributing to the Safe Bar Network. And so we're putting all those foundational plans in place so that when things open back up in the not too distant future, that we'll be ready to launch an effective nationwide campaign that we see rolling out in 2021 to how many states and cities, Haley?
We're going to be in 7 different regions and 21 states and 33 bars. And to do that, in the first year, and to do that, we're going to spend our time now building partnerships, partnering with organizations and partnering with trainers in those communities so that when things open back up and bar owners and managers start to see problems, which they will, we'll be ready to provide training across the country.
Something that you both just said that I really want to take a minute to just lift up is the importance of partnerships in this work. And so I really think it's such a great idea that you're taking the time now to think about what partnerships are going to be the most effective and how do you start to cultivate those. Kevin, your idea that you spoke to of reaching out to liquor distributors and recognizing, they have really high sales right now. How can we bring them in as a partner too? How can we bring them in to join these efforts? That's just such a huge part of our work in prevention public health, is bringing people in to the work with us. So I also want to say that, for our part, we're really happy to have you on the episode and to lift up the work that you all are doing too.
Well, thank you. I think, one thing we've learned from Haley is that you can never have too many people involved and backing you. And sometimes, college bar owners have a certain, and we've certainly had problems, and we will continue to have problems. I don't want to come on here and say that we've instituted the learnings from the Safe Bar Network and the core values that we have in our organization. We're never going to stub our toe. We're going to stub our toe. But the more people understand that we're cognizant of it, and we realize that this is a high risk or situation in these venues where you have hundreds and thousands of college students that are drinking, but we're trying to make it the best place possible. I think whether it's your distributor partners, your distiller or brewery partners, or the people in the community at the universities that are in the departments that Haley works with, trying to make their campuses and their communities safer. We want everybody to understand and join us in this effort. And again, the biggest reason is because it just works. I mean, what Haley does, the conversation she starts, is just absolutely wonderful, the results that we're seeing.
Well,
yeah,
you
I would.
oh, sorry, go ahead, Haley.
I was just going to add that on the idea of partnerships, the way we approach every training is as a partnership. So I may be there as the trainer, but the staff is a huge part of that partnership. They lead the conversation. They really drive how effective it is, and the managers and owners, their participation and their buy-in and their activity in the training really makes or breaks the conversation. Because when we have Kevin or his business partner, Kevin Duffy, up there at the beginning of training talking about why it's important to them personally, and then they wrap the training up talking about how it connects to their business values, the staff gets a really clear message that when they use these skills, whether things go really well or things go really poorly, or maybe somewhere in between, that they're going to be supported. And I think that a lot of times when we talk about prevention and bystander intervention specifically, that's really the missing piece we're not talking about, is that like things aren't always going to go well. You may have someone who's completely indifferent to your effort to help them, but that doesn't mean you should stop. And what keeps people really focused on using these skills and being part of this culture is the support that they get from other people. And that doesn't happen without support from managers and from the bar owners.
Well, I know that y'all just talked about the importance of partnerships and also doing that sort of outreach to campuses to work with them as well. And September is National Campus Safety Awareness Month. But, just like you mentioned earlier, Haley, students aren't only living and working and socializing on campus, they're part of that larger surrounding community too. So just to kind of talk about Campus Safety Awareness Month, if we have folks listening to this and they want to know more about the Safe Bar Network, how they can get involved, how they can bring others in their community along, how would folks do that? How would folks reach out to you?
Yeah, it's as easy as just going to our website, which is safebarnetwork.org. And there's a contact button on every page, so you can reach out to us. Also, we're on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. So whatever platform is your preferred hangout, you can stay with us by following the Safe Bar Network on any of those platforms, and you can message us there and we'll get back with you.
Excellent. Well, thanks. Definitely in the spirit of partnerships, I wanted to let any of our listeners know exactly how to be able to reach out to y'all and start this conversation within their organizations, within their communities too.
Yeah, we really hope that the Safe Bar training and being part of the Safe Bar Network will be an option for rape crisis and response agencies across the country who are looking to build their own prevention work in their community, and maybe they're not sure where to start, or maybe they know that focusing on bar and restaurant industry is a really good fit for their community. Either way, we would love to hear from you, and we'd love to form a partnership and see how we can help.
Well, great. So I want to just say thank you to you both for being on today, for chatting with me, telling us about your work. And I always like to end each episode with kind of a random question that ties everything together. So my question for both of you is, what is your fondest memory of college? And I'll give y'all a minute or two to think about that, because I always give my response before putting people on the spot. So as I was thinking about this question earlier, many of my fondest memories were in some of the different activities I was involved in as a student. So I was in the service fraternity APO, and I was also a staff member at the Women's Center. And I met some of my very best friends through being involved in both of those groups. And then they also just really taught me a lot of important values, like the importance of public service, feminism, and gender equity. So a lot of the things that I hold really dear to me now as an adult, I feel like I gained through those relationships and experiences in college.
Go ahead, Haley.
All right. So my silly one, because I'm going to, just share too. My silly one is I love going out and hanging out with my friends and dancing. That's like my favorite thing to do, even as an adult, and I should probably, be over it, but I'm super social. And one of the bars Kevin owns actually is one of my favorite places to go when I was in college. So every time I'm there doing training, I'm extra cheesy and corny. Sometimes I even throw out like an MIZ and see what I get back. Usually nothing, but yeah, so that's my silly one. But my serious one is I worked for the volleyball team most of undergrad and grad school, and I played for the club volleyball team, and that was my community. And the thing that I really learned that still like keeps me going and drives me is when you work for, I think they call them Olympic sports, right? The volleyball, the wrestling, the gymnastics, these sports that aren't big money makers, you have to be so scrappy and fight for what you need and what you want in these big political systems. And so, when I have to like really work on a partnership, or I'm thinking about ways to be creative or how to do 10 people's job with one person's time, I really think back to my volleyball days and what it took then, and how to use resources really wisely and just get really scrappy and make it happen.
Nice. I like that, Haley. And I'm going to go ahead and throw a shout out back to you with a ZOU.
Thank you, Matthew. Thanks.
Let me just say that I think the fondest memory of my time in college, I met my wife, I met my, most of my dear friends to this day in Kansas City. We hung around at Mizzou together, and then certainly my business partner, Kevin Duffy, who's a big part of my life. And so that's the fondest memory. I will, a little more recently, as it kind of circling back and speaking to your listeners, a recent college memory was when I was sitting at the Indiana University on our patio, and it was the day that Haley was there, and we probably trained 200 of our staff, and a girl comes up to the table because we're the only guys in the bar that are over 60, and we kind of stick out, and she approached us and said, "Hey, are you the owners?" We said, "Yeah, we are." She said, I don't like your bar. I don't ever go here. I don't like the people you hire. I don't like the people that come here." We said, "Oh." She goes, "But I'm here tonight and I'm spending money because I heard about the training that you did today. And if you're that kind of an organization, I want to support you." And so for your listeners, Matthew, I think it just shows that what we're doing here is a win-win-win multiple times. It stops sexual harassment, or at least prevents it with our bystander intervention work. But it also has the ability to actually increase your business because your employees know that you care, your customers and your future customers know that you care. So, so that I think I just wanted to share that good story with you because we're proud of that, and that was certainly the law of unintended consequences. We never saw that coming. That's not why we're doing this, but it did happen, and I think it's out there.
Well, Kevin, I appreciate you sharing that story. I think that that's a really great way of tying together this whole conversation, and also a good example of how efforts like this can really just have ripple effects through the community as well. So I appreciate you sharing that.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Haley, Kevin, thank you both for taking the time to chat with me today, and thanks for being on the show, and also best of luck with all of these efforts through the fall.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew.
All right. Thanks, y'all.
Bye-bye now.